Skeletons. Maya, why don't you tell the beautiful people who don't know you about you?
Hello, everyone. I am Maya Gobara, also known as Maya the Mystic. I am a priestess. I am a spiritual healer. I don't know, how much are we talking about in here today, Briar? You know me.
So, my goal here is really it's twofold. There are stories probably that you would like to tell. We're here to listen to those stories. But the other half of this is that I really would like to see I'm talking to the women that I know that are so self-actualized that even while this is going on, you're taking care of yourself. Because that's not the case for a lot of Black women. It's not the case for a lot of women of color. And and then there's the white ladies who are flaming themselves out with rage right now because they don't understand that this is a long war, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I want you to share is what's keeping you sane and what we can do to support you.
Got you. So with that being said, healer, priestess, spiritual teacher, spiritual advisor. So I work within the spiritual space. I've recently paired that with my work in other areas. So I've gone back to being a dominatrix. I've gone back to like those pieces and parts of myself, which has caused me to merge the two. So now I find myself talking to women about centering themselves, about bringing your desires back to what it is that you truly want, um, and no longer like contorting yourself to fit into someone's idea of you. And so what has really been sustaining me, I would say, is pleasure. And when I say pleasure, people tend to automatically go sexual. And why it's like, sure, yes, but also food, what I watch, what I listen to, the conversations that I entertain, how I feel in my body, really listening to my body, giving myself what it is that I need, and truly, but that causes me to have to shut out the noise. You know, I show up how I need to show up. How I feel that I should be showing up. I do what's absolutely necessary. And when I say that, I mean, I still have to run my business. I still have to pay my bills. And so I do that. But at the same time, I make sure that I'm taking care of myself and that I am a full-blown priority, because if not, I can go down the rabbit hole pretty fast. Um, I am someone who's like, I'm a diagnosed chronic depressive. I have an anxiety disorder. Like, all of these things have been with me since I was a child. And so taking care of myself is super important, especially right now.
Mhm,
Hmm.
mhm. Hey, Tessa, glad you could make it. So we have somebody here at least to listen to these wonderful words of wisdom. So, okay, let's start let's start from the top, because when you say pleasure, I'm with you 100% there. I like being so happy about whatever it is I'm doing, and usually it's making food or puttering in the kitchen or playing in my garden, that I hum with joy. And when I explain this phenomenon to people, they go, I don't know what you're talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about. So how have you managed to cultivate that for yourself?
Getting back to books, reading fiction. For me, it's getting back to reading smut fiction, which, you know, when you're I went through a phase of like, oh, I'm so spiritual. Now I'm like surrounding myself with all these spiritual books, these spiritual concepts, metaphysics. And then I realized I don't read romance anymore. I don't read erotica anymore. I haven't written romance and erotica in a while. And so allowing myself to return to that has been amazing. I started back with a dance instructor who does like online stuff. And so being able to do that, I establish routines. So Tessa's here. I call Tessa every morning, you know, and I talk to her, and it's what brings me joy, what makes me happy, and just continuing to like do that. For me, it's been really just a lot of books, but the kind of books that people think just, oh, it's not a big deal, but it makes me happy. So yeah.
But doing what makes you happy allows you to step into your power and do the things that you need to do to care for yourself and your community long term.
Yes, I'm more centered. I'm almost surprised by how well I'm doing. Look, if this was me maybe 6 years ago, no, absolutely not. But now I do see the power of truly taking care of myself and doing those things that we usually would write off as unimportant, and seeing how important they truly are, because now it allows me to show up in a whole and healthy way with my clients. So yeah.
Okay. So, one of the things that I have wanted to do with this series is to allow you the space to talk about the experiences that you encounter on a regular basis that people probably don't believe. And they're always such minor experiences, and yet they're huge in your life and how they shaped your life. So if anything comes to mind or as we go along, tell those stories.
Okay.
What so you've not come from strictly corporate. What's shaped your journey getting to this point where you're working for yourself and you're doing these things that make you happy?
Yeah, I don't really like I started down the corporate path in college. So I was an intern with Pfizer during college, and I was on the path to become a pharmaceutical sales rep. I was mentored by, the district manager of like the whole Midwest area. They wanted me. I could not do it. I couldn't do it because my anxiety would flare up. I would cry before I would have to go into doctor's offices to talk to them. I'll be shaking. It got to the point where no, like I was lying about seeing certain doctors. I'm like lying on paperwork. Like that's how bad it was. I couldn't do it. Um, and I was a resident advisor in college. And so I started to do it after I graduated for international students who came here. Um, I just couldn't do it. I just realized that I didn't have the temperament for it. And when everybody would just always ask me, like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Like, I went to school for psychology. I went for my master's. I dropped out because this is not for me. I had no clue what I wanted to do. Um, so what started me was I started to dive into the things that I like to do. And so, like, my desires have led me here, to be quite honest, from the time that I was maybe about 23. So, each and everything that I wanted to do, I would try it. So, Twitter was pretty new at the time. So, I hopped on Twitter. And so, I would just talk on Twitter all day. I got so many followers that people started to pay me to post things for them. So, that's when I started getting into social media stuff. Then people came, you manage my account. Boom, now I'm a social media manager. You know, I've done everything. You know how they say, oh, you have 10 jobs until you find what I've done. Like, I literally have done about 10 things before I'm here today. And I feel like I'm still evolving. Um, my family, my friends, they're so used to it now. It's like, what is she doing now? What is she doing now? And they're all don't know how it is that I do it. They're like, how do you take care of yourself? Because I get paid. And they just don't seem to believe it. Like, how do you take care of yourself? I said, I don't just take care of me, I take care of my mother doing what I do. And desire, really, and fully immersing myself and not asking or waiting for permission from other people in order to do it. When I'm ready to flip the switch, I just flip the switch and I don't sit around and wait.
That's something that Ty and I talked a lot about yesterday, having to make the choice because people aren't going to choose for you, and they're not going to allow you to make that choice. So, social media in particular is not kind to Black women. You go to Instagram, you scroll through your feed, and it's a well-known fact at this point in time that white women are prioritized in the algorithm because that's what people want to see. So, how have you dealt with those kinds of prejudices in your work and leading up to now?
The block button has been my best friend since I first started social media. I don't have to argue with you. I don't have to talk to you. I just keep it moving, really. But I am now getting into like the art of seduction and all of that stuff, right? And I have realized that when you show up fully, when you show up just being who it is that you are, I don't even want to say like, oh, you show up unapologetically. No, you show up authentically, because sometimes things do hurt. And when you get enough people who follow you in terms of social media, I don't have to really say much. I'm usually trying to be a buffer, and I try to cut things off before things go too far, because my community will rally behind me. But that's only because I feel like I've been myself. I've been loud. I can be loud. I can be boisterous. And when I'm not feeling loud and boisterous, I let people know that too. And just being my full self, I think, has saved me so much, because it's given me room and space to like my humanity. You know, I've never shown up like this fully polished person, because I'm not, you know, and I think that has given me so much grace in the online space. Although, I mean, it has made me sometimes a target, but I feel like you're always going to be a target on social media for whatever reason. Yeah.
Tessa says we will wreck shit, and that about sums it up, right? So, as you have shaped your own reality then, and it's very clear that you've done that in spite of all of the things that we know that are out there that I'm sure that you're encountering, how how would you recommend that other people go about that? Because I'm watching my feed on Facebook right now, and while I'm glad that people are starting to call out the racists, this is going to flame out really quickly. They don't
Yes.
have it in them to keep this going. Most of them do not possess the wherewithal to keep this going.
It's a repeat of what was happening in like 2017. And
Mhm.
eventually people, yes, they fizzle out because they don't have the capacity. They don't really know what it is that they want people to do about it. They don't really have any resolutions. And then it's just, yeah. Find your people. Whenever I flip to something else, because that's just kind of what I want to do, I'm like an Aries moon. So I'm always like, you know, I'm over here now. Find your people and immerse yourself in that. I sometimes forget that people aren't into crystals, and like everyone isn't into crystals. Everyone isn't a witch. Everyone what? And when I'm out in the world, because I immerse myself like into like who I am and what I do so much, that other people feel weird to me, even though I'm the minority for whatever reason. So I surround myself with people who look like me, talk like me. And I think sometimes there's a fear of doing that, because we're all talking about like diversity, diversity, diversity. Um, there's still diversity if you align your interests. If you find people who are interested in what you're interested in, who are doing what you like to do, who talk some of the same lingo as you, and there's still so much diversity of thought even within those circles. There's still so much diversity in terms of ethnicity and race and background and gender and all that stuff within those circles. And I would say, don't be afraid to disconnect from the people that you are currently with if they're not aligning with you. You don't have to like do like the whole announcement on Facebook of if you're here tomorrow, you're welcome because I'm deleting most of you, right? You just find your people and slowly people who are no longer a match, it'll naturally come to an end or just kind of pull back for a little bit.
So boundaries then. Boundaries are key. Talk to me about how you personally set boundaries around the relationships that you're no longer willing to entertain.
I was just talking to Tess about, you know how everybody's talking about like the ghosters? You know, it's such a huge thing. Like, this person ghosted me. Oh my God. And it's just, everyone's just bashing ghosters. And I am a self admitted ghoster. And in some cases where I feel like it is wrong, I do my best to go back and talk to the person. But in 8 times out of 10, I feel like I owe you nothing.
Right, because really the question becomes when you ghost someone, what is it that preceded that event?
You have usually crossed like some major boundaries for me. You have consistently, they call them habitual line steppers. You know, you keep calling me at hours of the day. You are inboxing me all the time over things that you shouldn't be inboxing me for, or you're asking for free services that you know that I charge for consistently. I've given you advice 7, 8, 9 times for free. You never take it, and now you're back wanting to cry on my phone or in my inbox. I cannot do it. I will not do it. And protecting my peace and my space and allowing other people to deal with whatever feelings that come up on their own. I'm not here to be somebody's therapist. I'm not here to be your best friend unless we're literally best friends. And I take ownership over myself and my feelings, and I allow other people to manage their own.
That's such an important theme, the self-care, because at the end of the day, while it is important to do the work, it's more important for you to protect your space and to protect your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And one person alone cannot change the ills of the world. So, how do you involve yourself in the larger cause without causing yourself harm?
I find myself because I am such, I feel, I'm an empath and, like those, all that stuff. I find myself more working with people who have the bandwidth to go out, to be loud, to have a voice. And I find myself kind of being their safe haven and their safe space where they can come, decompress, talk, someone to help them recenter themselves. So I consider myself more as like an energetic nurse. If the nurses went, you're out to war, like running out on the front line, it's like you have to play your position. And so for me, I see myself more as like an energetic, spiritual nurse who helps people unpack and talk. And you kind of pat them up. You help them get their recenter themselves so that they can go back out into the world. Because if they only have access to other people who are just as fired up and ready to go, like you said, it fizzles out. So I help people replenish and learning to be okay with that and dealing with people who would like to guilt trip you for not being out, you know? So yeah, that's more how I see myself. It's helping those who need a reminder of their own divinity and their own right to shut down for a bit. Yeah.
Well, knowing your role is important because when this is over, and this will end, as dire as everything feels right now, whatever this is will not last. And when it's over, we still have to pick up the pieces and carry on and do the other things. So knowing what part you play in all of that is vital. talk to me about what spiritual health looks like. How can we cultivate that within ourselves in a way that allows us to continue fighting?
From find your own like meditative practice. Don't allow it other people to tell you what your meditative practice should look like. Find what actually works for you. They say that wisdom is doing what works. Okay. And so for someone like me, I am someone who can sit and be still and just meditate. But sometimes my body is completely rebellious and it's like, no. And so I will dance, I will sing, I will sit and stare out the window because I need a focal point with a cup of coffee. I will listen to music and zen out and zone out. I will go on meditative walks. I would say find what actually brings you peace, not what people say should bring you peace. And don't be afraid to play around, to switch it up, and to really examine how it felt to you in your body. How are you mentally? Do you hit a wall? You know, maybe 5 minutes is good for you, but after that you get anxious, which kind of defeats the purpose, right? Maybe you need more than 10 minutes. Maybe you need 20 minutes. Finding like for me, in order to switch task, I have to take a moment for that switch to flip. I just can't go from one thing into the next. I need like a little bit of like a 15 to 20-minute break so that my brain can kind of switch over, and really paying attention and giving yourself grace and spaces like in those kinds of spaces. I teach people honesty with themselves, because you continually trying something and hitting a brick wall is only frustrating you. Be very honest about what your limitations are so that you can find ways that work for you to figure it out. So yeah.
Which leads us right into protecting your mental health. Because when you have anxiety or depression, a lot of those things are very similar in the ways that you have to protect your health. So, talk to me about things. Typically, the Black community has not been great about therapy. There is a lovely organization, that Black girl therapy. I mean, this is
Mm-hmm.
a thing because it's still something I think that people are resistant to. So, what's that looked like in your life?
Uh, I've been doing therapy on and off since I was about 19, because I was just having these terrible panic attacks. I didn't even know what they were. I was just like, I just can't breathe sometimes randomly throughout the day. And it freaks me out, and it freaks out everyone around me. And after that. And so just on and off as I need to. Um, Not being afraid to switch a therapist if I'm just completely not feeling them, especially as a Black woman. Sometimes it can be very difficult to find someone who already wants someone who looks like you is very difficult, especially depending on where you're located, or someone who's very sensitive to your particular needs. Um, so I sometimes still have to tell myself, like, you need to book a session. And you just find yourself like, no, I can do it on my own. It's like, no, yes you can, but you don't have to. And it's a much shorter journey when you have help, and there's no shame in that. And reminding myself that sometimes I do need to be able to unload. Sometimes I need some of my negative thought patterns to be challenged. um Sometimes I need to be accountable to someone. Because I have gone so far down the rabbit hole in my mental health that sometimes I can't really see things clearly. And so really catching myself, I call it my lens, where my lens is a little warped. Honesty, radical honesty with myself, but at the same time, not beating myself up, which has taken a lot. a lot of therapy, actually. So, yeah.
So, if you're comfortable, I would like to ask, because I know that this is a problem. Black women in particular are often seen as difficult patients, and your emotional health is dismissed because you should just be able to deal with this. Is a number of research studies that have been conducted on this. How has that presented itself in your life?
Well, for one, I'm still in the middle of the process of getting diagnosed with lupus. And the reason it's taking so long is because people are not taking me seriously about my symptoms. They see a woman who's in her early 30s who, I'm telling them about all my symptoms. They want to treat them all individually and dismiss the fact that I possibly have lupus. My mother has lupus. My mother did not get diagnosed with lupus. She was my size. I am a size 16. My mother did not get diagnosed with lupus until she was a 00. She went from my size to a 00 in a year and a half.
So she
We
literally wasted away and the doctors did nothing.
Yeah,
This is
I've taken
incredibly
her
common.
to the doctor. Her pancreas at the time, you can see it pounding. She's skin and bones. They sent my mother home with a Z-Pack.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I was taking her, and eventually I was just losing it in ER, just like losing it, like you all are going to kill her. No one's taking her seriously. And just back and back and back and back until finally one doctor did. One. And it's like, oh, one, she has pancreatic cancer now. And two, she has lupus. And she has a ton of nerve damage. And so one, seeing my mom fight for her life ever since I was about 12, just consistently having issues with her health and just being dismissed and ignored time and time again. And sometimes I see myself repeating that same pattern. And I have to remind myself all the time to advocate for myself and to tell myself, because you internalize that stuff. I'm just being dramatic. I should be able to take it. Oh, it's okay if your legs hurt. It's okay if you want to pass out after, like, you're just lazy. This is why you get so tired after this walk and you want to pass out. Oh, you're just being lazy or you're just being weak. Everyone's back hurts. Everybody feels this feeling in their chest. And you just do it. It then becomes like this internalized thing. And so I find myself having to vocalize it to other people that I trust so that they themselves can tell me, like, no, you need help. Because when you go to the doctor, they're so dismissive. I'm still dealing with that to this day.
Do you find that having written documentation helps at all, or do they read it at all? They don't read it.
No, they don't read it. And they dismiss it because it's like, oh, here are all my labs and here are all the things that have happened to me. It's like, oh, we're going to redo it. We're going to see how you are now.
That's fascinating because your lived experience is simply not believable to them.
No, they treat you as if you need therapy. If you didn't feel crazy before you walked in, you feel crazy when you walk out. That's for damn sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what the answers are here. I know that for women in general, our chronic pain is frequently dismissed. It takes many, many years of going back to the doctor and continuing to say, hey, I've already had this test. And I can't imagine how much more dismissive that is with the expectation. I believe I read a study not too long ago that white men get prescribed uh, narcotics, specifically opioids, at a rate of 16-1 over Black women. We simply just don't believe that you have pain. It just doesn't exist for you.
And they're more likely to believe that you are an addict. My mom, obviously extreme with lupus. Recently here at a doctor's office, they served her molded food. She was there she was dehydrated, she was not well, she was in the middle of a terrible flare. They had put her on a morphine pump, which my mom tries to avoid narcotics at all costs to the point where it's actually frustrating, okay? Because she can get access to them, but she doesn't really take them. She tries not to because she likes to be present and coherent and all that stuff. After she did that, they immediately dismissed her. They pulled her off the pump within an hour and discharged her. When she went over to a new doctor, on her paperwork, this particular doctor implied that she had a drug problem, which is why he released her. And when they took my mom's blood levels, they said it's nothing. Actually, we're shocked that there aren't more drugs in your system. He pulled her off a morphine pump and released her within an hour.
After talking her into it in the first place, I'm quite
Yes.
sure, because that's
Yes.
exactly how
Because she
that went
doesn't
down.
like it.
She
Because it
doesn't
makes her
like it.
itch. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was more believable to people, that she was a drug addict. And those are the kind of experiences that like Black women have.
Yes, God forbid you have something actually wrong with you, because it's not going to be treated, or it's going to be dismissed as something you just need to deal with. The level of incompetence in medicine is really difficult to stomach when you are a Black woman, because that has to be how it feels. That if they don't care about you, then they're not doctors, right? What's the first rule? Do no harm?
Yes. I'm sorry, my phone is
Oh, you're
doing
fine.
something.
There you are.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to feel like you've been betrayed.
You don't even know. Like, I've grown up with like some of the most abusive doctors. Now that I think about it, like the things that have been said to me, the whole bedside manner, the whole thing. I just have always thought that doctors are supposed to be assholes to you, because it's all I've grown up with. I like asshole doctors who talk down to you. You don't even know that there's like another experience out there. It took me until I was 19 to get treated for high blood pressure. I had high blood pressure heavily documented since I was 12. I
Which
mean, we're
is
talking
common
about
in Black women. So you'd
150,
think.
160. I kept going to the clinic for migraines consistently in school. We'll go to the doctor once, twice a month. They would just say, "What do you have to be stressed about? Breathe. What do you have to be stressed about?" And now it's done like some real long-term damage to my body. What do you have? Like, just calm down.
I felt that one. Just calm down.
Just calm down.
You're just
What
an
are
angry
you?
Black
You just,
woman. Just calm
yeah,
down.
just calm down. Breathe. There's no reason for you to be stressed.
Wow. So that's healthcare. That's mental health care. What else you got for us, baby? Lay it on us.
What else do you want to talk about? I don't know. I think it's like when we navigate the world, we don't, because it's so normalized, You don't even know that something like unfair is happening to you, you know? It's at the point where like you feel like, oh well, it's the equivalent of walking into a room and you kind of want to navigate to the people that look like you in a room full of people that don't look like you, but you don't do it because you don't want other people to call you a clique or to. That was like a huge thing for me in like jobs, even in like my 20s. uh you would it would be a staff of maybe like 30 and it's like four of us and they all hang out and no one says that, but they refer to you and your friends as the gang. Oh, the gang's together. What?
I don't even speak Spanish, but the minute I associate with other Chicana women, oh yes, there are all the jokes. All the jokes.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's like, okay, so when 16 of you all hang out, that's fine.
It's just a bowling club.
Yeah, when we hang out, it's a gang, it's a clique. It's yeah, yeah. Hmm. And learning how to be okay with that for me now, like who cares? I'm gonna, yeah.
I think that it's self-protection at a base level. If you're not going to be treated humanely, and I mean that in the purest sense of the word, if you're not going to be treated like a human being, why bother?
Hmm. Yes, because you just realize, like, in the trying, because I've tried that, I've tried those games, I've tried it, and I've always run into some huge, intense problems when I've chosen my friends that way, in an effort to not in an effort for me to not look racist. I have tried to fit in. And it's always been like the most terrible experiences. Like it's like one of the most pride swallowing, constantly having to explain yourself. It's just too much. And so I've just decided I'm friends with whoever I want to be friends with. And if you want to be my friend, there's some work that you have to do. I cannot do that kind of labor for someone.
So what is that work? Very specifically, what are the requirements to be Maya's friend?
For me, social justice, in order to be my friend now, social justice and equity and things like that have to be something that's already high on your priority list. You cannot come to me and not know that like people of color can't be racist. Those aren't things that I'm willing to explain to you or to do. The only thing I'm willing to do is send you to resources, and you have to be willing to absorb those resources independent of me. I am not here to be your teacher. I'm not here to labor for you in that way. And anyone who expects me to cannot be my friend. They are not my friend.
It was something Tess and I talked about on Monday. This work has been done for years, decades. It's not like there's not resources out there. When they're asking, what can we do to help? I just want to strangle some people.
There's so
Go
many
look,
lists.
Google, for God's sake.
Google it. There's so many lists. They're literal lists of things that you can do to help.
Mhm. All right, what else? What else do I got to be Maya's friend?
In terms of,
In terms of the people that you are inviting into your circle, what I'm looking for here is kind of a what are the boundaries that you've set so that other people can duplicate them?
for me to be my friend, there's a certain element of non-judgment, which I understand then requires like a certain element of self-actualization. and being very comfortable in your own skin, in your own body, um, of coming to terms with who you really are. So there's a certain level of like self-confidence that a person has to have in order to be my friend. Because if not, then you just become a client that I'm servicing for free, and I can't do it.
And you have very clear boundaries about those relationships, those friends versus y- emotional labor clients.
And I feel like a lot of times those boundaries get blurred and people allow them to blur because, oh, this person spent $50 with me 3 months ago and now they just keep inboxing me or they keep talking to me. And don't confuse it. Just because you're interacting with someone on social media, that's not necessarily a friend. And you don't owe them anything. And so now when some people inbox me, I just send them a link. If you would like to talk to me, that quickly lets them know where they are with me. You know, you sound like you could really use a session. Here's a link for that.
Good for you.
I have to.
It's
I have to
important.
because I am so loud and boisterous online and I love to talk to people online. I'm still very much an introvert and people usually don't know that. And so they assume that I just want to talk to everybody. I don't, not in my private life. And so I have to make sure that like those boundaries are super firm.
So tell me who you're working with these days.
I am working with women who feel stifled in their self and sensual expression. And so I find the women that I'm working with a lot of times are already in business, but and they are making money, but they are hating the way that they are showing up in the world and in their private life because that's where it really stems from. And so a lot of times these women have paid high-end business coaching, marketing coaches, all of that, but yet something feels missing. And it usually is themselves
Mm.
is missing. And so I teach them how to unapologetically get what it is that they want. But of course, that is a journey. And how to disconnect their desires from usually their partner's desires or from the desires of those who they're catering to, and to be truly self centered and teaching them how to be able to be selfish and self centered without guilt and get to the core of what it is that they truly want. And so we start within, and then slowly but surely it starts manifesting without. So, yeah.
Because being happy, being content, knowing who you are, knowing what makes you happy, all of that stuff spills out into the rest of your life.
Yes, it does. People tend to try to do it backwards.
Mhm.
You've built this house that you don't even want because it looks like the house down the street. And other people said that you should have this. And you're in a big ass mansion when you wanted a cabin in the woods. And so, yeah, knowing what you want. Most of my clients, when I ask, what do you want? Because I still work with like people, even if they're in marketing and stuff, they're still like business people or they're like therapists. What do you want? They either can't answer or they give me like this super spiritual, elevated answer that still is nothing concrete, you know? And so helping them really get concrete about what it is that they want.
Defining your life on your terms is something that's vitally important, especially right now, because you don't have the ability to define the rest of the world. So, what we have is right here. What does my life look like? How do I want it to be shaped? And how do I build those things in a way that allows me to continue that journey?
Yes, exactly that.
So, those women then how tell me about I hate this word, but tell me the container. How are you working with people?
I am currently doing, of course, one-on-one work. I also have the Sensual Goddess Circle. It's just a Patreon. It's $10 a month. Along with that, it's like a Facebook group and all that stuff. And so I have that. And I'm starting a program on June 14th called Sensual and Sovereign. And that is where I'm really taking women deep into their own sensuality and teaching them how to stand in it. And I'm also even teaching like the power of like seduction, not just when it comes to a partner, but when it comes to every single person in your life. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about manipulation and redefining what that looks like, because women have been
because I hear that word and
shamed.
I automatically go, oh, that's a bad word.
Yes.
So,
But women have been shamed for the things that they do naturally and then turn around and get manipulated.
right?
We can't help it that when we smile, people want to do things for us. And so then we don't smile. And especially as a woman of color, as a Black woman, you know, kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And
Right.
however you show up, if you don't smile, then you look mean. If you do smile, then you kind of look like a ditz. Or like someone that people can run over, yeah.
Which means that fuck them all. Live your life the way
How do
that you
you
need
want
to
to
live it for you.
exactly that? Mm-hmm.
And so far, that has been the most important lesson I have taken away from this week. Fuck y'all. It's not going to enhance your life to focus on what you cannot change.
Exactly that. No, and trying to live for you're unhappy, but yet for some reason people are, especially women, so concerned with the happiness of others that we will martyr ourselves. At least my partner's happy, at least my kids are happy, at least the people who witness me on social media are happy with the way that I present myself. Everyone else is happy except for you, and you learn to take that as a form of currency, but you're miserable. And you're so afraid of being yourself because it's going to displease others. Fuck them. Mm-hmm.
I think that's amazing. I'm so glad you're giving that away because that is a lesson that more of us could use, I think. I think we would all be possibly a little more tolerant if we were willing to say it a little more often.
Yes.
Because when I'm not allowing you to have power over me in my life, then you don't matter to me anymore.
Yes, and people need that. People, one, need to experience that from someone. They need to experience not being the center of another person's life. Because it causes you to realize, like, why am I trying to control them when I need to be focused here? And then you need the experience of not centering someone else in your life. Because I'm telling you, once you experience that kind of joy, that kind of bliss, that kind of contentment, no one can sell you alive anything else ever again. Once you truly get to know yourself, love yourself, like yourself, you can never go back.
No, it feels inauthentic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we started with, isn't it? Authenticity.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that we've come full circle on that. So, do you have any final thoughts?
I know this is a random thing. I just want to tell people, like, it is okay to be quiet, to gather yourself, to gather your thoughts, to sit with yourself, it is okay to not perform for others. Um, of course, it is not okay to bypass, it is not okay to be complicit in things, but it is okay to go within and to see how you really think it's okay to acknowledge when your thinking is warped, because sometimes I have thoughts, I'm like, well, that's kind of fucked up. It's okay to be honest with yourself and to change and to shift from a genuine place and not perform for others, because that does good to no one. So yeah.
So honor your inner silence. I like that.
Please.
There's a lot that you can take away from that. The still small voice within.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us aren't listening well enough.
No. And it's causing so many missteps because you're running out and rushing out to do things and say things, and you're misspeaking and you're just vomiting everywhere. And just shh, be quiet for a little bit. It's okay. Yeah.
Amazing. Maya, thank you so much. This has been so great. I'm so glad you could come and do this. I'm so glad we could have this conversation, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I did. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
We will do this again sometime.
Yes.
Yes. Tessa, everyone else who came and joined us, thank you so much for watching, and we will talk to y'all later. Bye.